All right, so you're probably training on a heavy bag right now, and I can guarantee you that you're picking up at least one of these bad habits. So we're gonna get right into it in this video. But before we do, please stick around to the end of the video because I'm gonna give you my #1 tip to help improve your bag work. That we're just gonna take that to the next level. So first, our first #1 bad habit that you're most likely doing, most people are doing this, is that you're punching at the bag too close. You're at this range, and you might say, Rob, what's wrong with working the bag really close? The problem with that is that if you just train the bag in close range, you're not gonna understand the full reach of your attacks because I'm only used to punching right here. And what happens when my opponent is not right here? I'm not going to be able to utilize my full reach because I'm just not going to know how long I can actually punch or how long I can actually kick. And so what tends to happen for fighters who only train really close on the heavy bag, when they come up to an opponent, now they only want to engage that opponent when they're really close. And so that oftentimes is what happens. They never throw a nice long punch or utilize longer strikes because they've only trained really right here. And so that's the range in which they're used to fighting. But again, Jeet Kune Do, we fight in all ranges of combat. Does not matter whether I'm long range, close range, whether I'm mid range or on the ground. Does not matter. Get used to training in all ranges of combat. So the reason people oftentimes train really close like this is because it allows them to get more power. I'm able to push the bag a lot further because I'm so close to it. But when I'm out here, I really can't push the bag that far. I'm utilizing my jab, but I can't get that same push or movement, and that's a lot of times what people are going for. It makes them feel like they're really doing something when the bag moves and it's swinging, and you know, maybe you're at the gym and people are watching you. So that's mistake #1. That's the bad habit you're learning, is to fight in close when you don't necessarily have to. Remember, in Jeet Kune Do, we want to intercept. And to be able to do that, we want to be at range. The next mistake or bad habit that you're picking up is you're learning not to bring your punch back. I promise you, you're most likely doing this. You're not bringing your punch back quick enough. So when you throw a punch, it's important that your hand comes back. You try to get your hand to come back faster than when it punches. Most people focus on their hand extension, and then their hand either drops on the way back or it comes back very slow. I want you to really accelerate, bring your hand back. What happens when you're training on the bag is when you hit the bag, you make impact. The bag now is pushing back on my hand. The bag wants to come back in place. So it gives a little bit, right? So you see the bag here, when I let go, the bag's gonna move back towards me. So this energy is pushing my hand back towards the starting point. If I started with my hands up, I hit the bag and the bag's gonna help accelerate my hand back. So what happens is when you actually fight an opponent and you don't hit them, because you're not gonna hit your opponent every time, right? You're not gonna hit them every single time. So what happens is if you miss and you're used to that impact pushing your hand back and you don't have that, well, what happens? Your hand's gonna drop on the way back because you've trained yourself to get that feedback to help you get your hand back into position. So just keep that in mind. Don't just train hitting the bag because you're not gonna hit your opponent every time. You're not even gonna hit their guard every time. They may slip, they may move their feet. You're gonna miss, bottom line. And what happens when you miss? Are you gonna drop your hand or are you gonna bring your hand back? So that's mistake #2. Mistake #3 is that you're most likely pushing your punch instead of hitting. Well, what's the difference, Rob? I'll tell you. So you can hit the bag, right? That's hitting the bag, or you can push the bag, right? Okay, it looks similar, but what happens when I push the bag is I'm gonna make contact and then I'm gonna push it a little bit, right? I'm pushing it because I want the bag to move, right? A lot of times people make that mistake when they're training in the gym, especially on a really heavy bag. They will make that contact, but then they're gonna push it a little bit. And that, unfortunately, is not the same as hitting. I need you to hit. Again, it's all about bringing your hand back quickly. Once you deliver your power, bring your hand back. Don't try to get the bag to move or do anything else, okay? Just hit, bring your hand back. So that is #3. The next one we want to talk about is there's no obstructions. There's no obstructions. What that means is that when you're fighting a real opponent, there's arms in the way, they're blocking, maneuvering, there's all sorts of other things happening. On the heavy bag, there are no arms, obviously. So everything is landing unobstructed without any sort of hindrance. But in a real fight, your opponent's gonna not allow that to happen. There's gonna be hindrances to that. So keep that in mind. So don't just train thinking that there's not gonna be anything in the way between you and your target. Of course there is. He's gonna have his guard up. He's gonna have different things going on. So just understand that the bag is not great for training you to hit through their guard or around their guard. The bob or something is better for that because the bob has arms and you have to move around that. Next issue is power. Most of the time when you're training on the heavy bag right now, you're utilizing only power punches. I want you to stop, okay? Because the reality is, in a real situation, you certainly want to utilize power because you need to defeat your opponent as quickly as possible. However, there are going to be times where you may not want to throw everything full power. There may be times, well, especially if you compete, there may be times where you want to throw lighter punches and then throw your hard shot. You don't want to throw everything very hard. So work on throwing some a little bit lighter and then use that to set up your heavy shots. But if you throw everything hard and heavy on the bag, again, that's fine if you're training for power, but don't just train for power. I need you also to train for speed and accuracy and timing and balance, precision, all these other factors, as even on the heavy bag. So that's the next one here. I'm losing track of the numbers, so just bear with me. Hopefully you guys are keeping track. The other issue is the bag doesn't move, right? The bag doesn't move, and so what happens is most of us are training from a stationary position. The bag's not moving, so I'm not moving. That's wrong. So I need you to use your footwork. Move as you're able to. Move around the bag, okay? Now, some of you are already doing that, understand that, realize that. Just keep that in mind that even though you're moving, the bag's not moving, but your opponent's gonna move. So the bag is not really great as an opponent because the bag is gonna be stationary. So just understand that and work in shadow boxing and other things with that. Last one I'm gonna tell you here is accuracy. The heavy bag is horrible for training your accuracy because you can literally close your eyes and hit it. It does not matter. I don't even have to see, I don't even have to look. You're gonna hit it because it's such a huge target. And so one of the things that I did previously, and I took this down because it's easier to record, was I actually put, and some people do this, they put like circles on their bag, or I used white tape actually and made blocks on my bag with white tape. They were just square. They were just square and different areas, squares in different areas. And what that represented was my opponent's guard, because now instead of trying to hit the block or hit the circle, some people do circles, I'm trying to hit around those things, hit around the obstacles, because that's realistic. Typically you're trying to hit around your opponent's defenses. And so that's one way in which you can help you to train that accuracy. But again, the heavy bag is not ideal for training accuracy. So those are some of the things that you're gonna run into in your heavy bag training. So I want you to keep all those factors in mind. Now, the number one thing you can do to really help and aid with your heavy bag training, outside of incorporating shadow boxing with it, because you need to do that as well, but visualizing. Please visualize your target. It's very difficult on a heavy bag because you just see a solid bag here and it's hard to imagine an actual opponent. But I want you to visualize an opponent in front of you. What are they doing? Where are they attacking at, right? Try to visualize where your opponent is and what your opponent may or may not be doing. And that's gonna help you now to gauge your range. How long is your opponent? Think about that. When your opponent's in front of you, how long is their arms, their legs? What are they doing? How's their movement? And that's gonna help you to time your attack. So train how you fight. If you're used to training on a bag like this that doesn't look like anything, and you get in front of a real person, that's why you're sparring. You're struggling in sparring because you're used to training on a bag, but that's because you're not visualizing. So please utilize every possible avenue in your training. So those are your tips on your heavy bag. Please support our channel, subscribe. Please subscribe. We're trying to grow our channel here. And again, we go into more detail on our website, jkdprocess.com. We got a full online course on Jeet Kune Do. Take you from Jeet Kune Do from A to Z. And then check out our next video. We're just gonna tell you really how to train when you have no equipment. Maybe you don't have a heavy bag, okay? So we're gonna give you some tips on how to do that as well.